Hi everyone, I am Sarah, and if you know me, you know that I don't usually draw landscapes. The last time I drew landscape, it was about 8 months ago, and it wasn't in digital format, it was just watercolor. And I'm so fond of drawing landscapes when it comes to watercolor, but as for digital drawing, I'm much more inclined to draw portraits and cartoonish faces. Landscape is not my area of expertise, but since I was starting out and I achieved this decent look on my painting, then I thought if anybody out there is starting out, then this video is gonna be helpful to them. So I started drawing this landscape, and the only reason that I actually chose the reference was because it was so vintage-like and it appeared so aesthetic to me. I started drawing, and the first thing that came to my mind was the fact that I missed drawing landscape a lot. I was thinking how to start drawing because I was feeling like it was gonna be a little bit difficult since I've never had this experience before. But I was like, yeah, but I have an advantage. I have an experience with drawing landscape before, and I can use the same technique and the same strategy and apply it in digital format. It wasn't gonna be different. So I started with the background as I always did in the past when I was drawing with watercolor, and that is because watercolor is irreversible and you can't just erase the background. It's just so different. But when it comes to digital drawing, you have so much freedom. You have layers, you can add a lot of layers to it, and just add any kind of detail you want. And so I started with the background, and what I did was to just add some colors to the background and try to blend it so that it feels like it's disappearing in the distance. And you have to keep this simple rule in mind, which is anything that is far, it needs to be paler in color. It has to have less color than something that is right in front of you. So you have to have this gradual loss of color as you go into the distance. And that is why we are looking at these trees, and these trees are actually losing their colors as it goes deeper and deeper. And you can see here that the bigger tree is much more colorful than the trees that are behind it. Those trees are just like shadow-like trees. Those trees are like some sort of figures. It's not that clear to us. It's just a bunch of trees just thrown together because they're in the distance. And one thing that I used a lot in this drawing was the blending tool. You kind of like have to go about it gradually. You have to build upon it gradually. You don't have to get it all at once. You can add something to the background, to the trees, and then jump back to the car that is in front of you. And it's not like there's any kind of rule for how you have to begin and where you need to begin. For me, it's easier to begin with the background because now I know where my painting is headed. So I started with the background, and then I moved on to the car that is right in front of us. The closest object to us is the car, so it is really the most demanding object in our landscape. We have to really put a lot of attention to it because it will show a lot more detail than other objects in this picture. And you can see that my landscape drawing is actually not realistic. It's much more toward cartoonish, and I want it to be that way because that's my style. And when I draw the car, I don't add too much details to it because that way I will go toward a realism, which is not really my style. My style is more like semi-realistic, and I try to simplify the pictures and not to go too deep into the reality of things. I would love to alter a little bit here and there because I'm adding my own signature to it in a way. And when I do that, I feel like I sense the beauty of imagination, because like when you don't use your imagination, drawing can look a little bit boring, a little bit, drawing is never gonna be feeling boring. But when you're actually adding your imagination, it's gonna become extremely interesting to you, and you're gonna feel like you are actually doing something novel. And so when you are drawing, don't get too hung up on the detail of your painting and things that you need to do in order to make it look realistic, because you don't need to make it look realistic. It really depends on your own taste. Whatever you want, do that. And that's how you find your style when it comes to the entirety of your drawing, because you don't want to have one style for drawing portraits and another style for drawing a landscape. You have to imagine yourself an artist who wants to make a picture book, for example. When you're making that picture book, you need to make everything cohesive, and if there's no congruency in your style, nobody's gonna be interested in it, because like it feels so out of place, it feels so wrong. It feels like there are too many artists in one book, and that's not interesting. So what I am doing here is finding that balance of adding details to my painting so that it doesn't look too realistic. So you can see some leaves behind the car that are not that visible. I kind of blended out a lot of it. Even though it's not that visible, it kind of shows up in a way. When you're looking at the whole picture, it still comes through. My whole painting is much more remarkable because of what I don't include in it rather than what I include in it. Like in my eyes, what I don't focus on is the best indicator of what my style is. And this was just a quick landscape painting. It's not gonna be the last landscape painting that I paint, and I would love to see you in the next video. Have a nice day and stay creative.